Well, we have got a show today, the Dibbuk Box. Whoa, it's fascinating. And listen to the subscriber interview as well, because of what happens to me. I was affected by this, and it is very, very interesting stuff. I survived, you'll be happy to know. In any case, before we start, today is September the 11th, and I would like you to join me for a moment in remembering our dead and in sharing the grief and the memories of those families who lost loved ones and have lost loved ones since in Iraq, both Iraqis and Americans in Iraq, and of course all who died in the World Trade Center. We have got with us two gentlemen, one of whom is going to be sort of semi-anonymous. The other is not. We are going to be talking about something that has become known as the Dibbuk Box, and we'll find out in a minute just what that's all about. We're going to be talking with Kevin Mannis, who originally acquired the box, and we'll find out where from, and with another gentleman, we'll call him only Jason, who is the current owner of the box. Why is he the owner of the box? Well, he bought this box in one of the most famous auctions in the history of eBay, the Dibbuk Box auction. There were millions upon millions of hits, because this has got to be one of the most fascinatingly eerie stories you will ever hear, and you can read more about it on dybbukbox.com. Is that right, Kevin and Jason?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start, I think, Kevin, with you. Why don't you tell us where this thing it came from? How did it get into your life?
Well, I had gone to an estate sale. I did that fairly frequently. I owned a small business here in Portland, and would go and pick up pieces of furniture that I'd refinish and sell, and had gone to an estate sale one day and had purchased the box as part of a lot of, and when I say a lot, I mean like an auction lot of different items, and that's how I acquired it. It was really not something that I had intentionally tried to buy, because it's kind of a nondescript, kind of plain-looking little box, but it came with a bunch of other things that I did want.
You mean other things not inside the box, but just other objects?
Right. There was a steamer trunk and a marble vase, and some other things that I thought were kind of interesting.
Now you've had quite a siege with this box. Your auction on eBay, that had to be one of the most exciting auction descriptions I've ever read. How many people hit on that eventually?
I think that on my initial eBay listing, there were quite a few. There were 6,500, 7,500. It didn't really get to the proportion that it's at now until I think Jason was involved in trying to buy it at maybe the second auction, and it went out of this world. I mean, as you said, just thousands upon thousands upon thousands.
Right, and Jason, you were attracted to this for some reason. You're a glutton for punishment, or just curious, or?
Well, actually, what I do is I'm a lecturer at a university. I'm a historian. I collect ancient artifacts, and I have like I said, kind of a history of solving puzzles with, extinct Mayan relics and things. And actually, I didn't go looking for this. At work, where we were talking about history items, a student came in and said, "You'll never believe what my roommate just bought," and pulled this thing up on eBay. And like most people, I heard it word of mouth, and I was fascinated by, this thing. And of course, I asked him right away, "Do you think I could ever see this box?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem, whatever." Well, time went on, and by the time I got to the point of saying, "Can you bring it in?" he's like, "Oh, the guy's moved out, and it's gone." Oddly enough, 6 months later, he says, "Oh, by the way, that roommate that had the box, he's having all types of problems. It's going back on eBay." And at that point, I had a week to decide, would I really want to buy it, investigate it, and find out what is the puzzle of this thing? And I did.
Now, you, the original seller, has been rather hard to track down. The guy who originally...
The college student who ended up with it that I learned about the box through.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, am I talking to you or Jason?
That was Jason.
Okay,
Kevin.
Kevin, tell us now. Let's get the timeline straight because I'm a little confused myself. You see the box. You buy the box just coincidentally in a yard sale or
Sure.
local auction. It comes into your possession.
Right.
Soon you put the box up for sale on eBay.
Not actually all that soon. I had the box for quite a while.
About how long?
Better part of, I think, a year and a half.
And at first, things seemed perfectly normal. What, is it sitting in the garage or the house? Or?
Well, I had it in my shop. I was gonna give it to my mother actually as a gift for her birthday. And
would have been a good birthday present.
Well, yeah, you have to understand that it has not been a haunted wine cabinet to me, the entire time. As a matter of fact, I was telling somebody the other day, a haunted wine cabinet makes about as much sense as an enchanted turkey baster.
Yeah, it does.
Why, So
well,
yeah, I never
exactly
really.
My question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Well, what about it made you change your mind?
Well, I'll tell you, during the time that I had it, I've never had so much bad luck, if you will. So many odd, terrible things happen, and I'll give you an example of a couple of those things. The day that I was giving my mom that box as a birthday present, her birthday is October 28th, and we hadn't been able to get together on October 28th. We got together on October 31st, which is Halloween.
Right.
Didn't mean anything to me either. But I gave her the box on October 31st. The day I gave her the box, right after I gave her the box, within probably about 10 minutes, she started suffering from a major stroke. And,
oh, my God.
What had happened was that morning she had come down to my shop, and we had some actually very good news. We had been told that we were going to be able to get part of the building that we had been trying to get for about a year as far as expanding our space. So, cause for celebration, I gave her the box, and about 10 minutes later, one of my employees came and said, "Your mom's having some problems. She's in distress." I went up to see what was wrong, and she was conscious, but she could not respond to me because she was having a stroke. So I got on the phone immediately with 911. As I did this, 2 customers came in the door, and I knew that we were going to have to close the shop, so I told one of my employees to explain to the people that we were having a problem and ask if they could leave. And at that point, the 2 customers said, "No, we're not going anywhere." They pulled out guns and FBI badges.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. And
what for?
That's a very good question. About 30 seconds later, 50, 60 different agents from everything from Secret Service, Immigration and Naturalization, the local sheriff, the police department came through the doors of the shop. I had no idea what was going on. I was still on the phone with the ambulance. And they started searching the premises and taking anything that had anything to do with anything electronic for some reason. And I say for some reason because to this day I still don't understand what this was all about. It was never explained to me.
So they just, by seeming coincidence, you get raided by every official agency with drawn guns while you are trying to get your mother to the hospital because she's having a stroke.
At the same time, exactly.
And the box is where at this point? It's with your mother still?
Sitting right beside my mother. I had just given it to her as a gift.
How did she react to that gift? I mean, later when she could...
Shortly thereafter, the head FBI agent came to me and said, "We're not going to need you. You're not under arrest." None of my employees were under arrest. I was so kind of bonkers with everything. Yeah. I just wanted to get to the hospital. I didn't understand what the heck was going on. And I left them there to do what they would. When I did get to the hospital and saw my mom, she was not able to speak. The stroke affected her speech. And she was able to write, though. And she wrote, I think it was "no gift." And I thought she was saying, "You didn't give me a gift for my birthday." Mom, I got you a gift. And she wrote, hate gift. And I said, okay, well, if you hate it that much, Mom, we'll get you something else. Don't worry about it. It's the least of our worries. But she absolutely hated the thing. And hate is a strong word for a birthday present, like a wine cabinet to your mom.
Yeah, it is a pretty strong word.
She really hated it.
Now, has she recovered, or what is her status now? Or she passed away, or?
No. Thank goodness.
Good.
She's not in very good health. She's regained her speech after months and months and months of trying, and we don't talk about it.
I can understand that. Has she ever said anything more about it than that at all?
No. She has in passing. It's nothing that makes a lot of sense. She says that there is a darkness about the thing, and it's kind of hard to describe. My mom is not really given to using that kind of vernacular.
Yeah.
But the communication kind of breaks down when we start talking. The same thing as with another employee that I had at the shop. When we started to talk about it, she had an experience with it, and doesn't want to speak about it anymore either. But.
Wow, I'm not sure I would either. In fact, I'm a little bit scared even talking about it now. I mean, Jason, how about you? Do you feel like even talking about the box could be dangerous? Where do you come from?
Yeah, I basically, again, I keep it, when I purchased the box after finding out, again, a second owner went through a whole series of problems. We actually, when the box arrived to my area, we were joking quite a bit about it. I mean, this student shows me the box, we start making jokes about, we read the story, we're horrified about his mother and all this, which was in the listing. And so we start teasing that everything that goes wrong at work is because of the Dibbuk box. And all of a sudden it arrives to our town, and out of nowhere, my home is attacked by a 100-year-old tree thrown into it. And this storm was uniquely to like maybe a 4-block area. I mean, how often does that happen?
Well,
that a storm affects 4 blocks, and the only damage is my home, with a perfectly good tree thrown into your house. And so after that, we just had at the office, you don't mock the box. I mean, I was not owning it. I had never planned on owning it. Maybe wanted to see it, but even that with some trepidation and caution.
Okay, we're going to take a little break right now, guys, and when we get back, I'm going to ask Jason what's to me a very interesting question. He never planned on owning it, and yet somehow he's got it. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We're talking to Kevin Mannis, an early owner of the infamous Dibbuk Box, auctioned on eBay, and the subject of a Yahoo chat group is specifically devoted just to this box. And Jason, its present possessor, dare I say owner, I don't know if that would be wise, and we are discussing a little bit about the box, their experiences with it, its history, and we're going to be finding out a little later where they think it might have come from and what in the heck is wrong with it. This is a box that doesn't bring real good luck to people, as we are discovering. Jason, you say that you hadn't planned on owning it. How did it come that you do own it?
Well, I certainly wanted to see it because with a story like it has, and keep in mind, I've been contacted since owning it by rabbis, by every paranormal group out there, demonologists, and just people who are playing curious, physicists, people looking for, is there something more to this world? And this box comes the closest to maybe being it. And so it kind of was a puzzle. And so I certainly wanted to see it, but then it kind of, like said, vanished with the second owner who had a lot of different issues, and ultimately because of financial loss and because of physical suffering and fatigue, tiredness, loss of all of his hair within days, we're talking, we all can lose our hair, but nobody loses all their hair in 4 days.
It's taken me a while longer than that. I hope you guys are in the same boat.
Yeah, it's a slow process. So these things, I mean, like I said, I was aware of these, and the student who brought it to my attention actually lived with the box and gave me enough evidence that at least the stories he was telling, he felt there was something about it, this darkness, as it said. And so it intrigued me as an artifact, since I collect ancient art from Egypt, Africa, Maya, and am fascinated by the art itself, but then the stories that go with these pieces. So I hadn't planned on buying the box. I just wanted to see it. But when he told me in February of this year the box was being put up because of the suffering, I sat and thought about it, realizing that there was something to this, and I didn't think at that time, the world really knew about it. But the odd thing is, as this listing stayed up, it had 2,500 hits. And as I started bidding on it, within hours, that jumped to 5,000 hits. But oddly, nobody, as always, was willing to really buy it. And it didn't really...
Why am I not surprised?
It didn't really go for quite very much money. It only doubled what it had sold the first time. And keep in mind, the open bid began with nothing, $1. Just take it. As both owners, Kevin and Joseph, the second owner, just didn't want it anymore. And so after I bought it, it seems like that's when it's kind of like it took a while for the world to wake up. And of course, I didn't know the other student that had bought it. I knew someone who knew him, but we'd never met. Certainly did not know Kevin. As a matter of fact, he's vanished off the face of the earth. And it was only through all my research that led me back to him in Portland to tie this circle together, because only through the first buyer could I ever find the family to resolve what is this thing.
Yeah.
Because upon it coming up for eBay auction, I had another person with a dilemma. He actually was trying to. He's a rather skilled illusionist, and he wanted to do one of these ghost tours and then bring them to a room and bring a spirit. But how does that happen? You can't make a spirit come to a room. And I said, you could if you had the Dibbuk box. And so basically, this Michael Callahan, who's an amazing illusionist, and he's out there doing magic even now.
Oh yeah, I know the name. He's fabulous.
And he, Colorado area, he insisted that we get the Dibbuk box so that we could recreate a box, and he would then create an illusion around it, and it would work beautifully for his show. And so he convinced me to go ahead and buy it, since he didn't really have the background for purchasing and things like that. So I went ahead and bought it, with really that was the main goal, was to authenticate it and then let him use it. But the things that have, from the time of owning it, and nothing about it is thrown or cobbled together, the age of the box, the materials in the box, piece by piece researching it, trailing it back to all the owners, I can't find any flaws in the stories. I know from police reports, even before I met Kevin, that I went online and found a police report about his mother who had been robbed, and it identified her heart ailment, her being paralyzed on one side, all the things a year after Kevin's story. These are official records. You can't fake those.
Kevin, she's also been robbed?
Yeah, she was robbed. We were robbed right after I purchased the box as well at my store.
Kevin, why don't you just give us a list now of everything that went wrong after you purchased the box?
I give you a partial list because some of the things are actually too personal to actually, with everything that I'm telling you even, too personal to actually say.
Oh, that's fine.
Brief list. After I purchased the box, our business was broken into, and my wallet was taken, and that began a nice long run of identity theft that still goes on to this day, as a matter of fact. I tried to sell the box after I gave it to my mom, and I sold it to a middle-aged couple who had come into the store one day. 3 days later, I come down to open the shop, and the box is sitting out in front of my shop. And this is in the middle of downtown Portland. You wouldn't leave anything out on the sidewalk there because it'd be gone. It was not gone. It was sitting there with a little note attached to it that said, "This has a how did they put it? I think they said an awful darkness or an awful blackness about it. Darkness and blackness keeps coming up in the description of this box by people. And so I had the box back. Then I gave it to my sister. My sister had it for about a week and gave it back to me and said, doors won't close on the thing. This box has kind of a unique mechanism in it. And the mechanism is such that if you open the bottom drawer, the two doors on top open at the same time automatically. It has never, as far as I've known, had any problem closing at all. As a matter of fact, it closes quite well. But she couldn't get it to close. So what the heck? I gave it to my brother. Well, my brother claimed that it made the house smell like jasmine flowers, whereas my sister-in-law claimed that it made the house smell like cat urine.
Huh.
And hated it.
So it liked him a little better, maybe.
Perhaps. At one point after I bought the box, I had taken it down, that I should kind of backtrack here to my shop to refinish it, and I had put it in the basement. And I had gone off to do some errands, and I left a sales manager there to open the store. And after I had left maybe a half hour or so later, I got a call from her saying that she had been locked into the store, and somebody was down in the basement breaking glass and swearing. And I said, well, get on the phone with the police immediately. Right as I'm saying that, my cell phone battery goes dead. I turned around the freeway, headed back down to the shop. When I got there, sure enough, the iron gates to the shop had been locked. She was inside. She was in my office. She was crying. She was hysterical. And I went down immediately to the basement to see what was going on. And there was only one entrance into the basement, one entrance out, or one exit, one way to get out, one way to get in. Went down the basement. All of the light bulbs in the basement were broken, including 10 4-foot fluorescent tubes that had been smashed on the floor. And I thought, well, certainly there's somebody down there, breaking them. There was nobody in the basement. There was, however, this smell of jasmine flowers. And you could literally walk into the smell, take one more step, not smell a thing, turn around and walk back into the smell in this one area. And very, very strange. I figured that because of how the shop was laid out and how the basement was, that maybe what she had heard were people on the sidewalk up above who had gotten into a fight. And I ascribed it to that. This is the employee that refuses to talk about it. Feels differently about it. But anyway,
kind of unique to that, I want to interject. This is Jason, the current owner. When we first found out, of course, again, never expecting to own the box, I have two children, and my oldest son, 8th grader, I told him the story of the box. It was the scariest thing he'd ever heard, the whole details, the smells, the broken lights in the basement, the mother with a heart attack and all that. And it was in February after I bought it. I was not going to tell my children that I actually had bought it, being kind of conned into this by, again, my friend, the illusionist. And but things started happening at work as soon as I had the box. We had an employee lose a grandmother suddenly. Another's father had injured himself horribly, and he was with the group, and he was the one who knew about the box and told me about the box. They all went into like almost a rage, and these are the most peaceful students you'd ever know, and they all kind of alluded to, it's the box. So my thought was, I've got to move this thing because it was in storage so that nobody would be harmed, but those who were near it obviously were being. So
yes.
I basically brought it home, but with the plans of, okay, Michael Callahan, you wanted it, you can keep it at your house for a while. But in the meantime, he'd left town and basically wasn't there to get it. So I'm on the phone frantically trying to get the box to him. My son doesn't know what's going on. He's just sitting in the chair waiting to come to town. I can't get a hold of him. He's out. I hang up the phone. I stand up, and I'm in a pool of jasmine. I'm in a historic home. We don't have these smells in our home.
A pool of jasmine. What do you mean? Well,
there's a circle. It was basically a circle that had enveloped the entire area where I was standing.
We have to stop for just a minute. We got to take a little break here. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. When we get back, we're going to find out what this Jasmine story is all about, but then we're going to be talking about the contents of the box. We'll be right back. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. When we left the air, we were talking to Jason about this experience he had with a box and standing in a pool. It was a pool of jasmine scent. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Please keep going.
Well, and so I suddenly realized this is something very odd, and it relates to the story of the box having these smells of jasmine. And so I basically move out of the way, and my son's sitting 10 feet from me. I said, come over here for a minute. And what? No, just come over here. So he walks over to where the phone was. He smells the air, and he turns to me and looks me dead in the eye and says, you've got the Dibbuk box, which just about knocked me off my feet. I'd never mentioned it, but he knew that smell was not of our home. And it was, I said, well, where does it come from? We could not trail it anywhere. It didn't come from anywhere. It just bloomed in that spot. We decided to go to town. We went out in the truck. I have a brand new truck. We get in the truck, and the car smells like cat piss. I mean, and of course he's freaking out. You know, Dad, you've got the box. I said, yes, but don't worry about it. This, you know, you've stepped in something. You've brought it in the car. And he goes, and it smells like cat piss. And it's like, well, it happens. And so basically that's when I removed it so that we would not be around it. And yet every time something significant happens with the box, these smells return.
Now, let me interject one thing here that was kind of odd for me. You have to understand, it's not the box that smells; it's the area around.
The box has no smell
Yeah.
at all.
So when I had it, I had no idea. The last thing I would think is, oh, that smells like cat urine. That must be the wine cabinet. Who would do that? It made no sense to me.
Now, the word jasmine is Persian in origin. Have either of you done any research into maybe why this particular odor would be associated with the box? Or that's a bigger question, really, and it's a little bit. Let's backtrack a little bit. We're going to talk later about the contents of the box, but right now let's talk about its possible origins. Probably both of you have got something to say about this. So, Kevin, why don't we start with you? And what do you know about the origins of the box? And I bet you, Jason, you've done even more research at this point. So, Kevin, let's start. And what do you know about the origins of the box, where it came from?
Well, you know, originally, as I said, I bought it at an estate sale. Right. And it was the day I bought it. I had tried to give the box back to the family after I realized that I had gotten into a lot of things, and it really was of no value to me. It was locked at the time, and I figured this is something that maybe they didn't want to let go, so I tried to give it back. And the granddaughter of the woman who had passed away became very emotional with me during this discourse, and ultimately said, "No, you made a deal. You bought it. It's yours." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm not asking for any money. You know, I paid for what I paid for, but let me at least give it back to your family." "No, you keep it." And I thought, okay, well, maybe she was a little bit emotional because of the grieving.
Yeah.
Subsequently, in the last 2 months, when I became aware of everything that had been going on with this box, because I had no idea of this for the last year whatsoever, decided to make contact or try to find the family again and do a little research into where this thing had come from. And I have been able to find them and find a cousin of the original owner. And when I made contact with her and told her why I was calling, this woman is, I would say, middle 80s, began crying and apologizing, saying she was sorry. And I said, "What could you possibly be sorry for? Do you know why I'm calling you?" She said, yes, it's about the box. "I'm so sorry." And I said, "What are you apologizing for?" And she said she was apologizing for World War II. She said she was apologizing for the Khmer Rouge. I said, "What are you talking about?" She said she was apologizing for 9/11. She said she was apologizing for something that took place in India I don't know when, with the DuPont Chemical Company. I still haven't figured that one out.
Yeah, that was the Bhopal explosion. I don't think it was the DuPont Chemical Company, but it was a big chemical.
Well, bottom line is, in talking with her, apparently the way this whole, I don't know how to describe it, it's not really the box came about, the whole matter came about, is the woman who originally owned it back in the 30s was involved in what her cousin describes as being a fad of the times, doing seances, trying to contact the other side, or contact people who had passed on. And from what she has described, she believes that they made contact with the other side. And I don't know how exactly, but she describes it as being a seance. And this is not just this woman and her cousin, but there were several, 5, 6, 7 friends and relatives involved in doing this. And over the course of time, kept making contact with what they believed to be some sort of a spirit. It became evident then that this spirit that they were contacting was playing some sort of psychological games with them. If they did not make contact with this entity or whatever it was, she says that it would, when they made contact the next time, be psychologically harmful to them. They started to realize this, and she says they started to realize that they were not contacting one entity, but many. And this is the most bizarre thing in the world to me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
She says that they wanted to bring this entity that they were contacting over to this side, if that makes sense. And that's what they attempted to do. When they attempted to do this, they were not successful. And the Dibbuk Box essentially came about in an effort to trap what they thought they had brought over. Now, it wasn't initially the Dibbuk Box. The Dibbuk Box, I guess, came about some years after that. I guess they tried to trap it in something other than the Dibbuk Box originally. The thing that was kind of weird that I didn't really put together until I spoke with Jason about this, actually, was that she remembered the date as being November 10th, 1938, which was apparently a night called Kristallnacht.
Yes, it was Kristallnacht. And it's interesting because right before that there had been an extraordinary event over Europe of it might have been a couple of years before that actually, but a huge aurora had appeared that some people thought was connected with the prophecies made during the Fatima apparition, that there would be a sign that would presage another great world war, and it's interesting that So where were they when this happened?
They were in Poland.
In Poland?
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's very resonant with me. I had a feeling it was going to turn out to be Poland. I tell you why. I've had a long history of involvement in sort of these edge things, as you probably know. Some of it has been pretty powerful. And I knew a lady who was a shtetler living in a little Jewish community in Poland before the war, who told me she was a very advanced Kabbalist, and she told me that they had achieved incredible things in Poland at that time in terms of relationship between this world and the other. And she said we were only interested in what was good, and we pushed away the dark side always. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it came leaping at us from behind across the border in the form of the black airplanes and steel tanks of Adolf Hitler. And I was one of the only Kabbalists in my community to escape with their lives.
And it's amazing, this woman also managed to escape, the one who had this relationship with the demon, the spirit, whatever, But it's ironic, of course, those that know about World War II, the amount of Thule Society, the cult, the things that Hitler was using. I mean, everything about it has to do with the black arts and witchcraft and occultists. And so, to me, it's ironic that as they were trying to trap this spirit on this side to prevent it from having any more influence, Hitler was unleashing through Joseph Goebbels the Kristallnacht, the Polish program.
Yes.
And the fact that these two would coincide on the same evening, to me, is fascinating. And no one ever expected what was going to happen with the Polish program to be what it was. I mean,
you mean it's the Jewish, actually?
The Jewish, yes. Basically, the Poles that were in
it's the Jews who were in Germany and Kristallnacht. He hadn't invaded Poland yet, but that would come.
But they were pushing him, yes, but they were pushing him in, and these things were going on, and the fact that how many synagogues, 1,000 synagogues, were destroyed, 26,000 people round up in concentration camps, just the number of shops, 800 shops destroyed, all this within hours. So you can imagine this family, this little Polish family doing these seances and feeling they had done something so horrible, their world within hours was gone. It's amazing.
And that's exactly the sense that you get when you speak with this woman. She there's a remorse about her and a sincerity that is just, it goes to your very core.
That's exactly the way I responded to the lady in New York who was also a Polish occultist before the war. It's interesting that we're talking that it would turn out that it's strange, but let's keep going. Well, we can't keep going right now because we're going to take a little break. When we get back, we're going to talk about things like who can help with the box and what are its contents. We'll get to that finally. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We'll be right back. This is Whitley Strieber. It's Dreamland. We've been talking about some really, really heavy stuff in connection with the Dibbuk box. Let me ask you both guys now. If this is in any way real, then there's something there that we don't want in our world at all, obviously. Has anybody come forward with any kind of ideas that you feel might have some credibility about banishing it or getting rid of it or fixing, as it were, the box, cleaning it out, if you will?
I think Jason probably has more to say about this than I do, but I'll interject the short part that I have, and that is that the concern has been, at least on my part, that this was not the product of a Kabbalistic ceremony of any kind. These people were involved in what has been described to me as almost a parlor game of making these seances. So as far as dealing with it, I think that because of the Hebrew that was on the box and on the one of the stones that were in the box, that there was the idea, and because the woman had a Jewish background, that this was something that was related to Kabbalah. And I'm not sure that would be a correct assumption. Am I right, Jason?
Yeah. Again, of course, the initial thought was, yes, was she a Kabbalist? What I've discovered is she may have been using her Jewish faith to protect herself and use what she had at her disposal to fight this thing, this evilness. When you look at the box, of course, it has a prayer on the back, which is a prayer that the Jews use in time of fear or of harm when they need comfort.
Right.
But uniquely, a rabbi had identified who'd seen the prayer in an image. And keep in mind, I've had thousands and thousands of people involved with this, and they all offer bits of information. If I did everything that everybody suggested, I would have done and undone everything 10 times. I would have burned it, don't burn it, bury it, don't bury it, cleanse it with a minion, don't cleanse it. I mean, it's like every time. So basically, it sits as an artifact because until I have enough information, I dare not do anything.
What's becoming kind of apparent to me is that the way to approach this may not be to approach doing anything to the box. It's there's a larger picture than that. It's not really the box. I don't think is responsible for anything. If there is anything responsible for anything, it's what was in the box.
What's connected? What's
connected to
sort
it,
of seems to
exactly.
hold its, as it were, uses the box as its toehold in our world.
A vessel, sure.
Well, and the things that are unique in the box are what appears to be like a matzeva, which is a pillar. Pillars were used for worship. When we think of idol worship, they're not necessarily little people and little gods, but stones themselves. And uniquely, this has a strange assortment of 4 stones. These stones, talking to some people, could be tombstones. 4 different pieces connected together, and then with the word peace in Hebrew written upon it. There's this unusual candlestick that appears to have survived a horrible fire. Though the center is wood, it's been scorched but not burned. And yet, so hot was the temperature that the iron legs have curled and basically almost broken off. And so there's 2 locks of hair, one that is reddish or blondish, it's described, and one that is dark. The reddish one is long strands. The dark is real short, as if, a man's clippings, because their pieces some of them are only 1/4 of an inch gathered together. 2 pennies and a dried out rose, and then the box itself. It was locked, and supposedly when Kevin unlocked it, that's when whatever was in it is released. And the scary thing in talking to Kevin is the family may have tried to capture more than one spirit, and there may be other Dibbuk boxes of sorts unopened out there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
The word Dibbuk, it comes from the Hebrew verb, I'm sure you guys know this, ledavek, which means to cling. And it was thought of as a spirit that would actually enter somebody, create a second personality for itself, and use that person's body for a while, kind of in concert with the individual, where the individual would be pushed aside and the Dibbuk would possess the body for a while, and then eventually the thing would leave the person. But this is in a box. Have either of you ever had the feeling that something might actually leave the box and enter you?
Well, not really enter me, but the one thing that kind of brought it all together and pointed that there was something going on with this box in the first place was when my brother and sister-in-law and sister had come over to my house to spend the evening. They spent the night, and next day my sister was talking about a nightmare that she had had. When I bought the box, I started having a series of nightmares that were just awful. They always went the same way. I would be walking with somebody who I either loved or trusted in a very serene setting, and at one point of the dream, I would look at the individual, look into the individual's eyes. It could be a different individual, but for a fleeting second, something wasn't right, and I knew at that point that what I was looking at was not who I thought I was looking at. And at that point, the individual became the most hideous, horrifying-looking hag of a woman that proceeded to just beat the living tar out of me. And this happened over and over again. I didn't really say anything about it. I thought I was kind of on the verge of needing a long vacation, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
My sister, however, on the morning that we're talking about, started describing the nightmare that she had had, and it was one of these nightmares exactly. And at that point, my brother and my sister-in-law were both extremely quiet until she finished, and then piped up with, they had had the same nightmare. And we started comparing notes. It turns out that we were having these nightmares when we had the box. My sister had it when she was at my house. I had the box at the house at the time, but she at that point said, didn't your girlfriend have the box at one point? I said, yeah, I called it my girlfriend. I said, hey, have you had any weird nightmares lately? And she said, well, yeah, why? I said, well, describe it. And she describes exactly the same nightmare. At that point, the common denominator was this silly box.
Still.
That is it becomes a little bit more significant when you start reading the stories of these other people who have had contact, who have also experienced coming in contact with an old woman in their dreams.
An angry old woman.
Not angry.
Oh, not
They're
angry.
not always angry. From, I guess, a couple of people have described her as being very, very benevolent looking. She certainly wasn't benevolent for me.
No.
But that's kind of the common embodiment, I think, that we all share.
And the thing, the thing
go
that
ahead,
I have
Jason.
with the box would only be that there are strange shadows that you could almost watch creep down the wall. And flashes. If you've ever been on out with a watch, and all of a sudden there's it'll make a flash on the wall. Usually, again at night and stuff, these flashes, just little like crescent shapes, will show in the least likely spots in a room that has no access to any light from outside. And so shadows that almost float under you like clouds.
Exactly.
Or you'll be sitting and you can literally watch something move under you, and yet it's like, wait a minute, how can a shadow literally float under me, almost like if you were outside and the cloud floated above your head. Only this is at night, and there's nothing. You're in a room, and so these are the strangest things I find with the box.
And these things, I mean, I don't think that we ever discussed that between the two of us. These are people are over and over and over again seeing these same shadowy things.
So Jason, you're still basically, you seem fairly comfortable with having the box.
Well, again, I keep it stored. I keep it locked with everything in it, and continue to research it. Like I said, it took almost 6 months to find Kevin, and then set him on the track of, he knew nothing about anything that had transpired since he sold it. It was gone. But then making all the connections back for him so that he would then go find the family. And to me, I feel like we have the full circle. We know what caused the box to be made. The in-between parts would be nice to know. Where did this hair come from? Where did this candlestick? What are these stones?
Yes.
I'd like to know those things, but I feel at least I know the beginning and the end of the box.
It's interesting that you can't get anything definite about the stones, because you'd think that there would be somewhere in Jewish tradition, and, Kabbalism is not like, and I say Kabbalism because it's the only sort of esoteric tradition I know of within Judaism. There may be others, but it's not nearly as secretive like as Masonic stuff, and it's not, it doesn't have a lot of artifacts. It's mostly a study. So you've just never been able to really nail down what those are.
No, I think that in the weeks to come, we might be able to gain a little bit more insight, because I'm going to be talking with this relative of the original owner more extensively, and hopefully she'll be able to provide some sort of insight. But again, I don't think that any of these items are particularly related to Kabbalah. I think that she was approaching this from a totally different standpoint.
And it was, more spiritualism.
And maybe when it's hard to believe I'm even saying things like this, but maybe if she got in too deep, then she reverted back to her Jewish ancestry to, as Jason said, to protect herself. To me, it's hard.
It looks
hard
like to me. It looks like the box is filled with things that and written on by somebody who was desperate to protect themselves from something, who was struggling and way over their head.
Well, and in talking with this cousin, I think maybe more than just protecting themselves, trying to protect, as far as she's concerned, protect the world.
Protect the world. It is awesome. Gentlemen, we have come to the end of our time together. The Dibbuk Box, the man who originally, in all innocence, bought it from an estate sale, Kevin Manis, and Jason, its very courageous but careful present owner. Thank you very much for being with us on Dreamland.
Out of this world. I mean, as you said, just thousands upon thousands upon thousands.
Right, and Jason, you were attracted to this for some reason. You're a glutton for punishment, or just curious, or?
Well, actually, what I do is I'm a lecturer at a university. I'm a historian. I collect ancient artifacts, and I have like I said, kind of a history of solving puzzles with, extinct Mayan relics and things. And actually, I didn't go looking for this. At work, where we were talking about history items, a student came in and said, "You'll never believe what my roommate just bought." and pulled this thing up on eBay. And like most people, I heard it word of mouth, and I was fascinated by, this thing. And of course, I asked him right away, do you think I could ever see this box? And he's like, yeah, no problem, whatever. Well, time went on, and by the time I got to the point of saying, can you bring it in, he's like, oh, the guy's moved out, and it's gone. Oddly enough, 6 months later, he says, oh, by the way, that roommate that had the box, he's having all types of problems. It's going back on eBay. And at that point, I had a week to decide, would I really want to buy it, investigate it, and find out what is the puzzle of this thing? And I did.
Now, you, the original seller has been rather hard to track down. The guy who originally...
The college student who ended up with it that I learned about the box through.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, am I talking to you or Jason?
That was Jason.
Okay.
Kevin.
Kevin, tell us now... Let's get the timeline straight. Is that right, Kevin and Jason?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start, I think, Kevin, with you. Why don't you tell us where this thing it came from? How did it get into your life?
Well, I had gone to an estate sale. I did that fairly frequently. I owned a small business here in Portland, and would go and pick up pieces of furniture that I'd refinish and sell, and had gone to an estate sale one day and had purchased the box as part of a lot of, and when I say a lot, I mean like an auction lot of different items, and that's how I acquired it. It was really not something that I had intentionally tried to buy, because it's kind of a nondescript, kind of plain-looking little box, but it came with a bunch of other things that I did want.
You mean other things not inside the box, but just other objects?
Right. There was a steamer trunk and a marble vase and some other things that I thought were kind of interesting.
Now you've had quite a siege with this box. Your auction on eBay, that had to be one of the most exciting auction descriptions I've ever read. How many people hit on that eventually?
I think that on my initial eBay listing, there were quite a few. There were 6,500, 7,500. It didn't really get to the proportion that it's at now until I think Jason was involved in trying to buy it at maybe the second auction, and it went.
Well, we have got a show today, the Dibbuk Box. Whoa, it's fascinating. And listen to the subscriber interview as well, because of what happens to me. I was affected by this, and it is very, very interesting stuff. I survived, you'll be happy to know. In any case, before we start, today is September the 11th, and I would like you to join me for a moment in remembering our dead and in sharing the grief and the memories of those families who lost loved ones and have lost loved ones since in Iraq, both Iraqis and Americans in Iraq, and of course all who died in the World Trade Center. We have got with us two gentlemen, one of whom is going to be sort of semi-anonymous. The other is not. We are going to be talking about something that has become known as the Dibbuk Box, and we'll find out in a minute just what that's all about. We're going to be talking with Kevin Manis, who originally acquired the box, and we'll find out where from, and with another gentleman, we'll call him only Jason, who is the current owner of the box. Why is he the owner of the box? Well, he bought this box in one of the most famous auctions in the history of eBay, the Dibbuk Box auction. There were millions upon millions of hits, because this has got to be one of the most fascinatingly eerie stories you will ever hear, and you can read more about it on dybbukbox.com.
About 10 minutes, she started suffering from a major stroke. And,
oh my God.
What had happened was that morning she had come down to my shop, and we had some actually very good news. We had been told that we were going to be able to get part of the building that we had been trying to get for about a year. as far as expanding our space. So, cause for celebration, I gave her the box, and about 10 minutes later, one of my employees came and said, "Your mom's having some problems. She's in distress." I went up to see what was wrong, and she was conscious, but she could not respond to me because she was having a stroke. So I got on the phone immediately with 911. As I did this, 2 customers came in the door, and I knew that we were going to have to close the shop, so I told one of my employees to explain to the people that we were having a problem and ask if they could leave. And at that point, the 2 customers said, "No, we're not going anywhere." They pulled out guns and FBI badges.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. And
what for?
That's a very good question. About 30 seconds later, 50, 60 different agents from everything from Secret Service, Immigration and Naturalization, the local sheriff, the police department came through the doors of the shop. I had no idea what was going on. I was still on the phone with the ambulance. And they started searching the premises and taking anything that had anything to do with anything electronic for some reason. And I say for some reason because to this day I still don't understand what this was all about. It was never explained to me.
I'm a little confused myself. You see the box you buy the box just coincidentally in a yard sale or
Sure.
local auction. It comes into your possession.
Right.
Soon you put the box up for sale on eBay.
Not actually all that soon. I had the box for quite a while.
About how long?
A better part of, I think, a year and a half.
And at first, things seemed perfectly normal. What, is it sitting in the garage or the house? Or?
Well, I had it in my shop. I was gonna give it to my mother actually as a gift for her birthday. And
would have been a good birthday present.
Well, yeah, you have to understand that it has not been a haunted wine cabinet to me, the entire time. As a matter of fact, I was telling somebody the other day, a haunted wine cabinet makes about as much sense as an enchanted turkey baster.
It does.
Why? So yeah, I never really.
My question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Well, what about it made you change your mind?
Well, I'll tell you, during the time that I had it, I've never had so much bad luck, if you will. So many odd, terrible things happen. And I'll give you an example of a couple of those things. The day that I was giving my mom that box as a birthday present, her birthday is October 28th, and we hadn't been able to get together on October 28th. We got together on October 31st, which is Halloween.
Right.
Didn't mean anything to me either. But I gave her the box on October 31st. The day I gave her the box, right after I gave her the box, within probably